as people continue to comment, because we've got so much that we want to share. So welcome everybody, and I'm really delighted to be hosting this session. We know it's a crucial topic. Almost 2,000 people have registered. And for those of you who have to rush off, or you think, oh, I wish someone else had heard this, we will be recording it and sharing a recording with everyone who registered. And the theme for Children's Mental Health Week this year is Let's Connect. And basically, for the past 22 years, connection has literally been the essence of all the work, the guidance and the support I have provided to parents, because I very much focus on how parents can nurture that relationship and connection in families. And I passionately believe, and I'm pretty sure that Nadim shares that thought, is that a strong connected relationship is probably the best tool in your arsenal to support your child's mental health and well-being. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Rachel Vex. I'm a former primary school teacher. I'm a mother of 4 children, aged between 12 and 21. And in 2001, I founded Educating Matters. So we work with a vast range of organisations globally to support employees by addressing key topics like educating and raising children, integrating work and family, neurodiversity, carers, allyship, mental health and well-being. And I also work with schools and individuals and have an online parenting course where I share pretty much everything I've learned over the last 3 decades to raise children to thrive. And I'm really delighted to be joined by Nadim today. And I'd like to start by asking you to share with our audience just a bit about your background and particularly where your interest and experience in mental health stems from.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. So delighted that this talk resonated with so many of you. And I hope you can leave it with really practical tips, well as hopefully a very different mindset as well, I would hope. So my interest, I come from the business world and leadership and mainly entrepreneurship in new companies. Then as I became a dad, I had real challenges with my wife on how to parent our children. We just did a degree. Which is by the way, and we won't talk about this today. But
sorry to interrupt you, but there is like quite an echo as you're speaking. Don't know whether
is that better? No, better.
No, that's worse.
Can you hear me? No, that's worse. Okay, 1 second.
Let's just try. I'm saying it might be your AirPods. No, we can't hear you at all now.
Switch to my AirPods and see if that works better. How's that?
Yeah, that seems to be
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of an echo.
Some people are no echo for me on the right of you. Is everyone okay with sound? Can you please let us know?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Cool. So I was just saying that. So we won't talk a lot about this, but well, we will talk about teamwork and the importance of teamwork and connection. But so it's normal to have 75% of parents actually disagree on partners disagree on how to parent, and more than 50% of these are around how to discipline children. So it is quite a normal thing, but it also mostly stems from the fact that we become parents and we don't even realize what type of parenting style we're going to have. So I was the more authoritarian parent. My wife was much more permissive, and we just disagreed, and we would do the opposite. We would compensate each other. So I would become more authoritarian, she would become more permissive to compensate for each other, which was not great. And thankfully, we ended up finding better ways. And I realized, oh my God, there is actually a science to parenting. There's both a science and an art to parenting. The science of parenting is actually really very similar to leadership. And I know a lot of people who are joining us come from corporate world. Which is great. And actually what you do in the workplace actually can be applied at school and at home. It's just how to do it, obviously. So that's, I kind of really did a lot of research on that. So that's the science. I realized there is really some things, which is basically child psychology, understanding child psychology and how to apply it and how to motivate, how to lead by example, how to create a sense of purpose. But on the other side, there's also the art of parenting, and that's we're also going to discuss it today. How do you actually adapt to your children, understand them? But so I realized that this was so not known, and coming from the corporate world, all my friends just knew nothing about this. So that's when I decided to make it my life purpose to actually bring this to parents and make sure that everyone had at least the basic, the science, which we share. Actually, we share. We're still on the same page on all this, as well as the art. But then what happened a few years later is I realized, oh, well, actually, that's not the only thing. I can see parents coming back and say, oh, can you actually take care of my children? Because I'm doing things and it's working, but they also have these different problems they come up with, etc. And so I realized, well, you know what? We actually should help the whole family. So we can also train our children to develop some life skills, some character skills. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today. And so that's when I launched the Happy Confident Company, and we created these well-being programs for kids, a lot of resources such as mindfulness journals, cards like feeling cards, etc. We'll talk a little bit about this today. And what happened with COVID just accelerated that need, because we realized that actually children are not always taught, certainly not at school, the character skill they need to actually be more resilient, to better manage their feelings and regulate them, and all of that. And therefore, that's how it just became. And we can see today from the interest in this webinar that it has become a big challenge. And it'd be great to know from the. I don't know if you want to launch the poll on what people actually. Sorry, I'll let you do when you feel it's right. But I'd love to know from the audience if they are experiencing more challenges and a bit more overwhelmed around parenting, around anxiety and things, because it's that's certainly what I see in my coaching and in the presentations I do, etc., and exchanging with also a lot of expert therapists, etc., that this is the case. So it'd be good to know.
Yeah, so I've just launched that poll, and unfortunately I did upgrade because we had so many people registering. I have upgraded the package, but someone's just put in the chat that a colleague is trying to get on the call. So it doesn't seem to be going beyond 500, which is just beyond frustrating. I did purchase to go up higher, but anyway, we'll have to share a recording. You're the lucky 500 that got in. I feel really bad now. So we know that children are particularly susceptible to mental health challenges because their brains are undergoing significant development. And in fact, I read the most recent NHS report, the end of last year, into the mental health of children and young people in England, found 18% of children aged between 7 and 16 and 22% of young people between the ages of 17 and 24 had a probable mental health disorder. I mean, just last week, I ended up calling my daughter's secondary school and speaking to one of the heads there. And we were just talking about the shift that we've seen, particularly in years 7 and 8 in children's mental health compared to, previous years. So we're getting a sense from the audience, nobody has said no in answer to this poll question, but I would really like to invite those of you listening to share in the chat what you feel your main concerns are. And you have the option to do this anonymously or with your name, but this is supposed to be like creating that safe space to have this conversation and normalize some of the common challenges that we are all facing. So feel free to chat amongst yourselves on the side, share anything that resonates. If you've got some experience of something you found has worked really well for you, your family, at your children's school, one of the most powerful elements of sessions like this is to interact with each other. And then we really will be embodying the theme of Mental Health Week, which is Let's Connect. And we will have an opportunity for you to ask your own questions towards the end. So back to our topic. For me, yes, it feels like we're at this kind of perfect storm. So children have spent crucial years when they should have been developing their social and emotional skills in lockdown and feeling disconnected. And then teens are being exposed to more and more avenues for social media use. And then we've had a war in Ukraine and a cost of living crisis. So families are generally feeling quite a bit of anxiety. But I know that you're working with schools and parents there as well. Why do you think these mental health issues are on the rise?
Yes, Rachel. Actually, and we can see here almost, so 89% of people are feeling that there's a general increase in mental health challenges. And so it does confirm, what we've out of 500 people, that's quite a lot of answers. So thank you for answering that. And so there are many, and I could actually spend a session just explaining these, but so I'll go to the essential. And if you want more on this, actually, I think there are 2 books that are amazing from Johan Hari called Lost Connections and Stolen Focus. And he's a great British writer, and he addresses a lot of these. But so just to summarize, you just already mentioned several, which is so there is a general sense of anxiety, but children are particularly sensitive, so they're going to pick up on this even more. And that's why they will feel our anxiety, and they will not always manage to process it or understand it. And therefore, this is what there's more and more of this. What's happened is after COVID, coming out of COVID, actually there was an improvement in mental health of children, and then a collapse that happened in the last year. So basically, coming out of lockdown, children felt better because thankfully they could reconnect with their friends. But then now we're seeing a real crisis with more than 39% increase last year of referrals for serious mental health challenges. But so here we're not just going to address serious mental health challenges. We're just going to talk about just general anxiety and how to help our children, have better focus, feel less anxious, etc. And obviously that works for the ones who have little of it as well as the ones who have a lot more of it. So the key reasons is, so we're accelerating things. So we went through that kind of more peaceful time during COVID. And a lot of people, of course, it was challenging for parents, particularly if they had to work with their children in the same flat, etc. But in general, there was a calming of the whole, society. But then now it's accelerating. And what's happening with this acceleration is there's just lack of focus. People feel overwhelmed, not very focused. The average focus time is 65 seconds on a particular task, which is tiny. And children are experiencing the same. From the crib, from their pushchair, they're already starting to swipe. They're just used to that fast kind of, oh, no, I don't like this. Music, in the first 5-10 seconds, people choose if they're actually going to focus on the music or not. So it's this really fast pace of, yes, that works for me or that doesn't work for me. And our kids' brains are absolutely not. They're in development until the age of 24. Our prefrontal cortex, this logical part of our brain, is still in development. Children cannot make sense of this. So they feel completely overwhelmed. There are too many choices. So it's not even what video I'm going to look at only. It's also, what platform am I going to look at? Am I going to do Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok? Just imagine, even for adults, it's quite overwhelming. So for kids who actually live from this, it's just too much. So, and I can go on and on. But another really important factor, which is increasing, and I was having a conversation with several therapists about this, is the fact that our world has become a lot more about external motivation rather than intrinsic motivation. Mm. And all research shows that intrinsic motivation is actually superseded by extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is, for example, just the grade system. All the system is about, even when some schools are developing growth mindset strategies. But the problem is growth mindset requires that actually it's very much about your intrinsic, your effort to want to do something. It's not about just having a prize for having growth mindset because you had a growth mindset. And people schools are giving prizes for growth mindset. It doesn't make any sense. It's actually contradictory. Because what we want is for our children to develop intrinsic motivation to want to do better, to want to connect, not doing out of praise or out of grades or out of because we're giving them reward charts or things like that, because otherwise they just do it for that reason and they don't end up living connected to themselves and knowing what they really want, what they really need. So it's really important that that's why there's a crisis. It's really important that we change this, that we, and as you mentioned already, the connection is so important. Mental health, and this connection is also very much being in the present moment, not on screens. And by the way, don't worry. I mean, I've got 3 children. They're all, often on screen. So I know the challenges. It's just we're going to give a few tips, obviously, around that. So what we devised at the Happy Confident Company is actually ways to really come back to being grounded, to connect as a family, through activities, through journals. So really hard, the old journals that you want to write in, but making it engaging for children, and also through videos, introducing the life stuff that I'll mention. So it's multimedia, but it's very much about being grounded, understanding how we function as human beings, understanding how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others, so that we can just be happier and more connected.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm interested as well to know, I mean, everyone bringing up this topic of technology. I just had to get my daughter, we were buying her a new bed at the weekend, and we were just overwhelmed in 3 bed shops, like getting your head around just the amount of choice for everything. But I'm also interested to know how you think schools are responding and whether they're doing enough to address well-being and mental health. So that's the next poll question. And I do know, having been a teacher in the classroom, there is so many kind of competing demands and things going on. It's a really difficult place to be, and also the expectations from teachers have really kind of evolved, and there's league tables and all the other things that they need to be really need to be thinking about. But I also want to know, I want people to walk away from this session with some really practical strategies to implement. Like, that's where we like to come in and give you some of those tools. And we could talk about it all day, but what do you think that families and schools can really do in a more kind of proactive way to stem this rise in mental health challenges?
Thanks, Rachel. So the short answer is there are more and more schools that are really, and more teachers that are passionate about this and want to do it, but they are so overwhelmed. They have to address their own mental health because they also have challenges, and that's why they're a strike. And they're finding it really overwhelming, and that's why they have to be able to have a simple program that enables them to do that, which is why we ended up limiting everything to 10 minutes a day of mental health, because more than that, they cannot even find the time in their schedule. So it's finding this. So several schools are trying, which is great. So we see here that about 18% say yes, but 40% say no, and they're not doing enough to address. And we feel there's a lot more that has to be done, which is what we're trying to do. I'll share quickly my screen and a quick video because this kind of summarizes a bit what I've been saying, and also what we believe in at the Happy Company, what we can start doing. So I'll hope it works, because someone gave me instructions what to do. So let's hope that it works. Share sound. That's it. It should work. Sorry. I've got too many things on my screen, but that should work now. Please confirm that you can all see this. Oh, do you see only the presentation, or do you all see the polls and the Q&A?
No, we can't see. I can't see the video.
But can you see the presentation, the slide?
Yeah, I can see a slide.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, but you're not seeing any, because I've got lots of things on top of the slide on my screen. You're only seeing the slide.
Just around the bits around, not the full screen of the slide, but we can see it. It's fine. It's good.
Okay, I'm going to go into the video now, and let's see if please confirm it works.
No, I can't. Have you played it? Press play.
Sorry, it's not. Is it working?
No,
No, I
No.
did put share sound this time. It didn't work.
no.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
well, it doesn't matter. Then we won't do it. Not sure why, because I definitely this time.
I don't know. Maybe we'll do without that.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll do without that. No worries. No worries. Technology. Oh, 1 second. I might share computer sound. Yes.
It says someone's saying you're only sharing the PowerPoint application, not the video, the screen that the video is on.
Okay. Thanks. I'll share. So I'll share my whole screen. Just let's try a quick one. I'm going to share all computer.
We can always share a
Quick
link.
try. Yeah, totally. Quick try. Okay, let's see if that works better. Well, no, but unfortunately, I didn't have the. 1 second. Yeah, share sound is on. Sorry, just no to double check. So. Okay, that should work. Okay, oops. Oh, great. The joys of technology. Here, can you see this now? And hopefully that's going to work. Can you just confirm?
I am a
Did that work? Can you hear
Yeah.
the sound?
Yay!
Okay, great. Great. It's an emotional video. Well, we did it to really summarize what we're about, and I hope you connect with that.
I am a child. I look at your world and I wonder, who do I have to be? What do I need to know? And what do I need to learn to be happy in this world? I look at my future and I wonder, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Strong enough? Fast enough? Funny enough? Brave enough? Will I ever be enough? I wish more people liked me. I wish I didn't have to be perfect. I wish I could accept myself as I am. I wish I didn't want to hurt myself. I need you to help me believe in myself, understand my feelings and how to manage them, to have the confidence to deal with any challenge, and to deal with the pressures I'm facing. Give me the freedom to be creative, and the courage to love myself, and embrace both my strengths and my weaknesses. I am your child. I am the future.
I get emotional every time I see this.
Yeah. We've got so many comments coming through. I can barely keep up with them. But we're definitely going to share a link to that recording as well, to that video.
Thank you. So quickly, so just when my children were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I really.
Do you want to just stop sharing? There we go. Stop
Yeah.
sharing.
I'm actually, no, I'm going to share quickly.
Okay.
Because just a couple of slides and then I'll come back to you. But so I just was so oblivious to what was coming their way. But what really struck me, actually, no, I do want to stop sharing this. It's obviously going to be much better if I, sorry. So what happened is my 8-year-old at the time told me I hate myself. And that came from left field because She's the happiest positive child I've ever seen out of the 3 I have. And school had no idea. So we asked school, did you see anything? No, she's still the bubbly child she is. And so had to coach her to get to express that. And that made me realize any child at any point can actually go through a tough period, even the most positive child. And they need the tools to express themselves safely, to feel that they can share this. So for example, we're going to talk as one of the tools was going to be emotion coaching. Is they're basically, they don't feel safe to share their feelings because they feel that they're going to be told, oh, come on, you don't have a reason to feel this way. They're not going to share it. And that what's interesting is even as a parenting coach, my initial reaction was just to try and connect her back to her happy self. And what she would interpret was, oh, I'm not supposed to be this way. Because actually I'm not supposed to be angry and mean to my sisters and everything that she was basically experiencing. So what came up out of this was, oh, I hate myself because I'm not a good person. It's like, wow, that was a huge awakening of, hey, any child can go through this. And what I'm seeing now that my children are 10, 13, 15, is most of the friends of my 15-year-olds have basically are self-harming. They're girls, they're self-harming, or suicidal, and a lot of suicidal thoughts. And I'm talking like majority, 80% carry. But that's what I asked around me, and actually children who would have never, parents who would have never imagined that this could ever happen are experiencing this. And that's why we focus so much on prevention of hypercompatibility, because when our children are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and they're bubbly and everything, and even if they go through a bit of anxiety, we would never imagine that this anxiety, this low level of anxiety, can actually turn out to be something that's so, well, yeah, I mean, don't even find the words. It's basically something that's really can turn into a hate of themselves to the point of cutting themselves, which is why we put this in the video. We really hesitated because it shocks a lot of people. Like what, I mean, of course, thankfully, not all children are self-harming, but the problem is in some London schools, more than 50% of girls are self-harming because the ones who are not are actually faking it because they feel otherwise they're not part of the group. I mean, this is scary. This is really scary.
That is the thing. When we talk about the impact of kids on each other, that's what I also hear from kids.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to quickly share something because I think it's something that a lot of people could do with their children, although it needs a certain structure to be done. So I wouldn't recommend this just to be done to anyone with it. But so I'm going to share these stats that are really scary that you already mentioned quickly. But why every child is risky? Because 20% of children already have a diagnosed mental health problem in any year, which means there are probably around 20-30% who just also have quite a bit of anxiety, etc. So it's not just the 20% we need to focus on, it's all the others who are experiencing. For example, my child who felt totally fine, but didn't even have anxiety, but who kind of felt I hate myself. I hate myself at 8-year-old could become I self-harm at 12, 13, unless we really treat it. We really do something about it. It's not treatment as in you have to go to your therapist. It can simply be just the connection and the acknowledgement. The other big stat is 70% of children not receive intervention early enough, which is why it is so important to start early and to just build this connection and talk about feelings, etc. A lot of things that we're going to share today on tips. So stay for the tips. And in the last 5 years, 60% increase in mental health issues. And that's 39% just in the last year increase. And so I want to share something that's quite emotional. Actually, so that's negative thoughts of a girl called Yara, age 8. And you can see here, she did the exercise 2 years ago. And that she says, she's not a good person. I don't do enough. That's imagining someone hates you. You're not nice. You're thinking I'm horrible. You're annoying. I can't do anything. So, oh, sorry. That little girl is actually my second child, who's also the most positive. So not the first one, the one basically who I already had started doing a lot of things, and that's what went through her mind. And she is, by any, you ask around her, she's also one of the most positive person you can find. And that's what goes through children's mind, unfortunately. So instead of just telling them it's not okay to think that way, we actually have to help them acknowledge that this can be part of them, that can be these kind of thoughts, this little voice in their head, but what they can do about it and how they can transform these what we call unhelpful thoughts, rather negative, unhelpful thoughts into more helpful ones. And this is what, you know, a lot of work has to be done on this. And so just to finish on that, it's just really 10 minutes of mental health a day in families and in schools can be enough. And that's what I'm going to now share with you, some ideas on what we can do in 10 minutes a day, because obviously otherwise it feels really overwhelming. And so it's not about, even particularly for teachers in schools, where do I start? There's a lot of mental health resources out there, but they just require an hour from the teachers to prepare a lesson plan, to deliver the teaching, so it's not easy. So anyway, like that's what I wanted to share, and we can go into it. You lead with where you want to go, Rachel.
Well, I mean, we've spoken a lot about what the challenges are, and I want to really move forward to some of the for people to go away with some practical tools and not just feel, you know, very heavy. Yeah. And for me, I mean, for me personally, this is what I've been speaking about all week. I've just done one talk and I've got another one straight after, but it's about nurturing emotional intelligence in our children. It's helping them learn how to self-regulate, to manage and articulate their emotions. That is, for me, the most, you know, fundamental life skill. And I realized quite quickly as a teacher in the classroom that most of the learning is actually going on outside the classroom. And parents are a child's most important teacher. You know, we're going to have the greatest impact on their lives. So if we're trying to give some parents or carers guidance around what are those what should we really be focusing on? What are those most important character skills that children need to develop? Just how we've said, we know, you know, teachers struggle with finding the time with all the other bits of the curriculum that they have to fit in. And carers struggle with their life and everything else that we have to, you know, our work and our own challenges and thoughts and overwhelm. So it's like, what can we really do in a realistic, practical way? What are those skills that we can really help to nurture in our children when we don't have much time available to do it?
Absolutely. Let's get into that. Well, the first one is really, and I so agree with you, obviously, on the emotion coaching. It's we have a whole emotional literacy program for schools and for families, and it is. But to actually be able to connect with the emotions, the first step is to connect with our body. What we realize is nowadays we are because we're in screens a lot of the time, or there's this general overwhelm. We're often basically in what we call dissociation. So we're not either in the past or the future. Harvard research shows that more than 40% of our time is actually spent outside really of the present. And more than 90% is actually just automatic mode. So it's kind of getting out of this automatic mode. And so there's a few things we can do in the 10 minutes a day that I to start. The first thing you can do is regularly do what's called some breathing exercises, but there are a lot of complicated breathing exercises. People, obviously, meditation is great, but not everyone. You can't just start, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I need to start meditating now. Obviously not going to work. So the simplest method, and that's Stanford research shows that we're just doing this about 5 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be the same at the same time. It really changes people, and it reduces anxiety, and it's a psychological side. So I think let's practice it with people very quickly. It's as soon as you feel a little bit disconnected, overwhelmed, just take 2 breaths in. So up, top at the top, and then release to the side. It is the simplest and fastest way to connect with your parasympathetic system, so the calming system. Sympathetic system is the one that's overwhelmed. When you're in fight or flight or freeze, you're in your sympathetic system. Easiest way to get back into your parasympathetic is the psychological side. Obviously, try and do more than one, but 3 or 4 is really useful. Just this alone reconnects the body and mind. And that's when actually we can really feel our feelings, because otherwise it's really difficult. So body-mind connection regularly. Other tips for body-mind connections? is simply just touch. Just do that. It's incredible. Or I know it's if you do it in front of others, it's kind of weird, but it's one of the nicest things you can do is actually just to caress your hand this way. We've got a lot of nerves in the hand, and just that is super calming and grounding. So 3 little exercises. So just either you just start, your thumbs together, or you just caress your hand, and definitely breathe. And it's not just a deep breath, which is really great. I'm not saying deep breath is not good, but psychological side is the fastest shortcut to actually helping our vagus nerve as well calm down, which I do at the start of each presentation, because otherwise, you're not as present. So that's simple stuff. But if you start the day actually, and you do this regularly through the day, it's already a huge, huge change. The other tip, because we are talking about 10 minutes a day. So you see, we're talking 2-3 minutes a day of doing this can already change your day. But ideally, what we should start the day with is set intentionality. Because when we set goals, we're 42% more likely to achieve them. Then I'm not talking about goals for work here. I'm talking about goals of how we want to be in the day. So for kids, it's actually really useful. So we use, for example, to do this, we use our affirmation cards. So it can be as simple as, I choose to be confident today. And they can take the card. So you can choose a card like this and just take, what's my card for the day? Let's see what comes up for me. Today, oops, you can't see that. Today, I shield myself from other people's negative comments and thoughts. So you can just set an intention for the day, or you can take 2 or 3. So and for adults, it could be their goal for the day. I want to just be more patient today. Whatever works for you. Just that intentionality for the beginning of the day just sets the tone and makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that idea, because then at the end of the day, you can obviously, either you or your child can share examples of moments in which you did that. But it's
absolutely.
Just, I used to do that when I was a teacher. I would say, even with 5 and 6-year-olds, at the end of this session, this is what we're trying to learn and understand. And it's when you've got like that conscious awareness of what to focus on, that's what you see. When I was thinking about buying an electric car, that's all I noticed. Well, you want to be pregnant, exactly. You see pregnant people. So
exactly,
it's more of what you see, right?
Yeah.
So you're setting.
Yeah, it's actually called apophenia.
Yeah.
It's when we actually set our the typical 11-11, I see a lot of 11-11, but actually it's also our brain. We train our brain and to subconsciously to be ready to kind of see these things. So indeed, that's exactly it. We train our brain to actually be more conscious and intentional. And if you have time, you can literally visualize and be grateful for things that are going to happen for the day. So it can be things you do with the children. It could be teach your children to do that. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to school. You're going to have a great connection with one of your friends, even if it doesn't happen. Because we often want to shield our children from disappointment. But actually, disappointment and frustration are muscles that we need them to train. So we're not here to we have to help our children practice disappointment and frustration, but learn how to deal with these so that they actually, when we're not there, they can deal with that. And that's where we help them. So intentionality, very important. Then if you can visualize, for example, be grateful for the things that are going to happen today. And then you finish with a very important thing is you imagine yourself at the end of the day, super happy that it's been a great day and that you're going to have a great night's sleep. Research shows that just by visualizing that you have a better night's sleep, you're going to sleep better. So if you can do this a couple of times during the day, it's just really changes life. It's really kind of incredible, but it's kind of this manifestation of when you set we call it vibration or whatever you want to call it, but that you wanted something to happen, it's more likely to happen. Then at the end of the day, as you just shared, Rachel, which is so important, is actually then you can choose your top 3 things of the day and think about what was your intentionality and if it did manifest, if it did happen. And if it didn't, don't be harsh on yourself. It's just like, okay, today it didn't work as well as, it's really self-compassion. is the number one tool as parents, because we're just so hard on ourselves. Of course, a bit of guilt is okay, because that is what helps us actually want to change. So a bit of guilt is okay, but if the guilt becomes too much and into shame, actually, as we're not ashamed of what we did with our children, etc., it's actually not helpful, because we go into a shame cycle. So it's really important to have self-compassion and just decide to do something better. So at the end of the day, in summary, it's 3 top things, great to do with kids. So what are the 3 top things of the day? We have journals. I mean, I'm not going to show all our products, but journals that actually enable you to do that. So at the end of the day, the children can just have the different way they felt during the day, and the top 3 things of the day. So it's being grateful for the 3 things. Just 1 week of doing this, as research shows, makes you a lot happier, less anxiety, and sleep better. And then there are questions about self-reflection, and then they get a whole page where they can either draw if they're young, or they can really self-reflect, because what journaling's just shown is when you put an issue, a challenge you have onto paper, it just reduces completely the challenge. It just makes it a lot more manageable. So,
on that note, I'll share something funny. Yeah. So this is a great admission for a parent, coach, or whatever you want to call me. But my older 2, who are very close in age, we found very recently, they're now 19 and 21. But I gave my 19-year-old daughter, when she was, I don't know, 5 or 6, a book. And I said, in this book, you can write anything you feel about your brother. So she made a beautiful front cover, and she called it Why I Hate My Brother. And I didn't want to say we don't use the word hate in this house.
Yeah,
just like cover it all out. And that's the power of journaling. That's the power of just articulating, whether you draw it, say it, write it, whatever it is, of getting those thoughts like out of your mind and actually express, which is, of course, the basis of most forms of psychotherapy as well. But finding that space to articulate it, and you already feel that relief that it's out of your mind. And
absolutely. And it's a great segue into the feelings bit. And obviously that's what's interesting is I have the tendency to also tell my children, don't use the word hate, because there's actually research that shows that if you just put hate on a pack of rice, it actually becomes, actually black. So there's power in the words, but at the same time, they have to express themselves. So it's kind of finding the right balance. And that exercise actually probably the next step, because once you put on paper what for example, you hate, you can also then put on paper what you appreciate about hopefully your brothers or whatever. And then it actually becomes you got rid of the things that you wanted to get rid of, and now you can actually focus on things you really want. And that itself is transformational. So indeed, you want to write your unhelpful post. For example, that's why we do the inner bully exercise we've seen with my daughter. You just think 1 second, if she gets all of these negative thoughts on paper, it's like scary, actually. You just think we're a horrible family. Well, actually, we're a family of coaches and who have amazing children, but they still have these negative thoughts. But then we did the exercise of actually literally burning these negative thoughts and actually going into what are more helpful thoughts. When you think that, how can you actually transform it into more helpful one?
Yeah, and what I found as well is like either burning or ripping them up, but also if you go back and read them a few days later or a week later, you see, actually, I don't feel like that anymore. And that's that feeling that when you're in that emotion, you feel it really strongly, but it does pass. Like you can feel however you want to feel. You can never be wrong for having that emotion, and it does pass. And just to give hope for those of you with younger children, those 2 kids I spoke about chose to go and live away from home at the same university. And part of that decision is because they wanted to be together. Oh. So there is hope at the other end.
So I love this. And so coming back to motion coaching, which is so important, we've been sharing, both of us. So what science shows is that just naming emotions reduces their intensity in the brain. Dan Siegel, famous neuroscientist, called this name it to tame it. So it actually shows that how it reduces. So it makes it feel a lot more in control of our feelings when we just name them. So I have this great example around fear, because I didn't know, and when I asked, we don't have this poll, but basically when I asked, 99% of parents who would have a child, for example, who comes to them saying, oh, I'm afraid, I'm scared. And you don't see anything, you ask them, typically you ask them why, and they say, for example, if they say, I'm not sure, or I'm feeling, you just go, oh, my love, don't worry, I'm here. And you reassure them. And it sounds so logical, obviously, and so natural as a parent who just reassuring our child. The problem is, actually, there's an underlying message on this, which is actually you're not supposed to feel that way. And there's nothing to be, oh, sorry, I forgot that obviously often we will say there's nothing to be worried about, nothing to be afraid of. Forgot that important bit, which is so natural. But actually that is not the right message. Ideally, we should say, oh, I hear that you're afraid, you're scared. How can I help you? Or can I give you a hug? So the child feels acknowledged. And once they feel acknowledged, that is what reduces the intensity of the feeling in the brain and actually makes them more able to regulate it. And then we bring the oxytocin of the hug but the child feeling understood and connecting is the most important. Sometimes, and I'm not saying every child will feel this way, but there is a risk that they would feel disconnection because we didn't acknowledge their feeling. Even if we came and we clearly connected by saying, and obviously that becomes more difficult when we have an angry child who comes and just super angry, and acknowledging anger is not always easy. And that's why sometimes we can't do it. We have to remove ourselves from the situation, and we can use things like our feel it cards. So I am feeling, and I want to feel, and so I'm not going to go through a lot. But these are great ways to actually acknowledge children's feelings, for them to do it on themselves. I'm feeling sad, or I'm tired, or I'm disappointed. Or these are low intensity feelings, unpleasant. These are high intensity feelings. I'm feeling furious, or I'm feeling, what is that one? Guilty.
And we need to we need to use this vocabulary ourselves, because young children, how are they supposed to know what it means to feel frustrated or embarrassed and guilty? They feel it, but they haven't got a name to explain it. So, they'll know what a bottle is, or a cup, or a car, or a lorry, or whatever, but it's giving them that vocabulary, which is obviously the other value. If you go back to Dan Siegel's Name It to Tame It, you're giving a word to that emotion. And I find it doesn't even matter if you've got it wrong and you've got the wrong end of the stick. It's just about starting that conversation and showing them you really are trying to listen and understand.
You're so right, and that's why actually Brené Brown has gone through 3,000 research on the theme, because to write Atlas of the Heart, that's such a great book on feelings, and her research shows that on average we only use 3 feelings: happy, sad, and mad or angry in the US mad. And that's not enough, because actually when we say name it to tame it, it's actually ideally name more. So granularity of feelings are really important, which is why in our well-being program, Feel It for Schools, we have 96 feelings that we teach children. And they understand how it feels in the body, how to actually connect with, understand the feelings, so they can then let go a bit faster, because feelings are impermanent. Actually it's 3 seconds. You can just feel a feeling and let go of it. Unfortunately, we often hang on to it when we don't understand, when we feel it's not okay. So we go into that loop, and that's where we have to help our children, is just feel the feelings, acknowledge the feeling, and then help them let go of it. And so that's what emotion coaching is about. And the next step is actually what I want to feel is really important, because just doing the exercise of I am feeling and then I want to feel, and then that's where you go into the more positive feelings, happy, pleased, or excited, or the green ones that are more calmer. I want to feel kind, safe, relaxed. And so these are, then you can help children find strategy to go from one to another. And they feel empowered. And that's what schools who are using our Feel It program are teaching children, is how you go from one state to another. And actually then there's the mental health lead or the teacher doesn't have to go through this with them anymore. They just have to do this exercise once or twice. The children then know the strategies to actually go from one to another. And so that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, and just listening to you, I'm thinking, especially with younger kids, if you are watching a film or you're reading a story with your child and you observe a character making that shift, or you even say to them, what could Goldilocks do in that situation, or why do that child's crying in the street, and you observe them. Sometimes when it's not only about them, but it's on things that they observe that can also help to start that conversation about emotions.
Totally nailed it. And this is how you also develop empathy. And that's why in the PLIT program with schools, they actually get to check, it links to the curriculum, and they see what book have you read where a character has felt this feeling, and how did the others got affected by it, etc. So it's exactly that. It's creating this empathy and this realization of what we're feeling, and also how this feeling affects others, for example, as a family or as a school, etc. So totally. And so what's really important about this whole feeling thing is actually the sense of agency. So, and the sense of agency is one of the quickest turnaround to children, to changing a family dynamic, is create this sense of agency. So feelings is a great one because children feel acknowledged and feel they're more in control and regulate their feelings. A really important aspect. And then there's the other thing that to develop sense of agency. Sense of agency, let's call it, I don't like the word control, but it is essentially feel more control of our lives, because control is a very important aspect of human beings. We need to feel in control. If we don't, that's where the overwhelm happens, the anxiety, and that's what the problem is currently. You have children, 8, 9-year-olds. We did so Kelly Hannigan, with who we work, who's a great teacher, she trains teachers in mental health. She did a focus group with kids, 8, 9, 10. And they were literally going, so what are you thinking about on a regular basis? And they were saying, oh, the cost of living crisis. Teachers strike. It's like, but a child should not, basically, it's not that we want to protect our children. Of course, they can know that there's a cost of living crisis and their teachers. Of course, they could know their teacher strikes, but it's just the fact that they're impacted by all of this much more than we could ever think. So it's important to acknowledge these feelings, but also to make them feel that they're in control of other things, because obviously that they have no control of, and that's why a lot of children will choose helpless or powerless as one of the feelings, which is really something you don't want. Obviously, if at a young age you're feeling helpless, not great. So to give them this sense of control is you really want to limit commands and orders, which are very natural, obviously, in the family. Oh, do this, do that. Oh, you forgot to brush your teeth. I mean, even with teens, they forget to brush their teeth because that's. But instead of that, try and replace all of your orders and commands. As much as more than 90% of these can be replaced with choices and questions. So, and obviously you're very aware of them. So it's really, but I want to share this because it's a sense of agency of feelings and sense of agency. So the easiest way to remove some anxiety and make children feel better is reduce the commands and control. And therefore, so limited choices. We're not saying, just say, oh, what do you want to eat tonight? Or where do you want to go? It's literally, do you want this or that? Just 2 choices that suit you. And then questions, replace all your typical reminders with questions. So for example, what are you supposed to do before you go to bed? Oh, brush my teeth. It's much more respectful, even if you've had enough of repeating this, if you have teens or whatever, but it's much more respectful than, oh, do this, you forgot to do that. Or when they make a mistake, they spill something, break something, any mistake they make or is what are you going to do about this? Mm-hmm. So instead of going into, oh, pick up the pieces, do this, do that, or whatever they've done, is, oh, what are you going to do about this? Or how do you feel about this? This helps them just feel the responsibility. You want to make children responsible and still feel not save them, as I said, allow them to feel the frustration, the disappointment, but be there for them to help them know how to get out of it. So in these cases, what are you going to do about this? Or what are you supposed to do next for a routine? So these questions and choices are the best way to help children feel much more responsible, more in control, and connect with you, because they feel that you've actually given them a sense of agency, and that's what they still need at the moment, because it helps them be feel more in control and be more in control of their choices as well. Because when you give them limited choices and lots of questions, you're training them to make the right choices from an early age and develop this prefrontal cortex, which is in development until the age of 24. But you want them to develop this as soon as possible, because otherwise they make the wrong choices when they're teens.
Yeah, and it's that feeling of being, internally capable and doing things for themselves, thinking for themselves, problem solving, not having us kind of hovering over every single thing, and realizing the consequences of some of those choices that they make. So we are kind of running out of time, and I wanted to ask you a question as well. We've kind of gone. I will just say, if anyone disappears, that I'm going to share a link with a discount to some of your brilliant resources, a recording of this chat. People are also asking for a list. I'll give you a list of some really useful books. I've got lots around emotion coaching as well on the blog on my website, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. And I've also got this my online parenting course. I'm going to offer a discount to everyone this week for Children's Mental Health Week, and that's kind of bringing together everything that I've learned in 30 years of working with children. But I think that the core message is that we want to really focus on that relationship and connection, teach our children those self-regulation skills, not being scared of emotions and feelings, and having that space to express them, and also that feeling of being internally capable. And you're also talking about the intrinsic rather than the extrinsic motivation. So I just want to, there's a question that came. I mean, I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to share that they're going to try and put into practice, any feedback, but also questions. There was one really good question. We don't have long, but I think this is one that some parents may be thinking. What do you do if you have a child? So you've read all of this stuff and you've got resources and you know in theory, but you have a child that just doesn't seem to be engaging with it. What do you do then? That's what I hear a lot from parents.
And that's exactly why we create all the resources for children. Because, for example, now we've got a video program. We realize, okay, some might not want to journal. Okay, well, what do you do if they don't want to journal? Well, actually, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends, they actually get a lot from video. And so we're launched actually for Mental Health Week. We are launching Happy Company TV, which is a series of 10 videos where Emma Willis, famous celebrity presenter, is actually with a math professor and a lot of testimonials from kids, is teaching the 10 key life skills. We call them the 10 powers for kids. And I don't have time to go through all the powers. You can find them on our website, but it goes from power of introspection, so understanding ourselves, through power of creativity, power of mindset, power of resilience, power of failure, of understanding our mistakes, power of interoception, which is feeling our feelings, power of kindness, compassion, power of mindfulness, and we finish with the power of acceptance, which is when you do personal development, you realize that ultimately, actually, when you get to acceptance and accepting of ourselves as human beings, acceptance of others, and acceptance of what is, that's what really puts us in a state where we can better connect with ourselves and better connect with others. So when children don't connect with what we're trying to teach them, which is what we ended up realizing, well, not unfortunately, we actually can provide children with things that they do connect with. And that's why, so we can, but ideally, it's the whole family dynamic where we change, we start speaking from a different language. And actually, I do want to finish something. I realize it's one, but one of the most impactful things I have learned as a parenting coach after 10 years, and particularly as a more authoritarian parent originally, I realized it all came down, the real shift came from a shift of mindset. And the mindset is that actually we're all doing the best we can in every moment with the training and history we have. And so even our partner, that applies to our partner. So it gave me a lot more compassion towards my partner. And it's towards our children. It's realizing that, at 12, 13, 14, at this ages or younger, they're just trying to meet their needs. They're not doing anything wrong. So they just need us to help them get to these needs. And therefore, that sometimes is very challenging. So I'm not saying that it's easy to connect with a child who's super angry or who's really going through a very difficult moment. But that thought process of, okay, they're doing the best they can in this moment. How can I support them? And rather than just get really frustrated, it really brings the compassion necessary and the more patience necessary to connect, because you're right, as you said from the start, is this connection that is the best remedy to mental health. And so what we want is the best possible connection in the family, even though we're all going through challenges, and particularly with the current overwhelm, it's finding these moments of connection, of sharing, where we're not in fight or flight or freeze, and we're a moment where we can really share from the heart, and that really changes a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you so much. So honestly, you and I could just go on and on all day, coming up with more and more positive ideas. Listen, I just hope that everyone on today, just the level of things that people are sharing, you realize that whatever you're experiencing with your children and your family, I think at some level, all of us are facing these challenges. And the more we talk about it, the more we share techniques that have really worked, and really talk openly with our kids. And you know, maybe they don't like the breathing idea, but they like the journal. They like let's even look up online like ideas to help to support, like to create this. But it's just nurturing that space where they can really talk and being, I love this, one of my favorite expressions is like being an emotional container vessel for your child. Just being there and allowing them to just sit with their emotions without doing what adults always do, which is feeling like we need to come up with a solution or advice or ask 100 questions or just make the problem go away. But just, you know, be there with them to support them, and you're giving them a skill for life, really.
So agree. We don't have the time, but I wanted to share in one of the episodes of HCM TV, Yara, my child, who you've seen in the, you know, with all these negative thoughts, she actually shared a testimonial of how she managed to better deal with her unhelpful thoughts. And it's beautiful because you can see the evolution between her 8-year-old child and the 10-year-old, much more confident, much more able to actually address these negative thoughts. And that was literally through the thing that I mentioned today. And a few other things, obviously, that you can find that I'm happy to share in another session. But it's really, these were the basics, and hope that everyone can benefit from that, and then we can share more another time.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining. We will be sharing the recording, which obviously you're welcome to share with anyone else that you think will benefit from hearing this. I just feel like, oh, there's so much more we could say, but an hour goes in a flash, at least for us. But thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Rachel, for inviting me. It was